Welcome, guys.
Hello.
We'll just let you all trickle through and sort of let the room fill up slightly, and then we'll kick off. Hope you're all doing great.
I can see Lindsay, my business partner.
Oh, that's good.
I can't hear you guys.
Excellent. So I guess there'll probably be a few latecomers as always, but I'll kick off the proceedings. So thanks everyone for joining us today. Massively appreciate everyone in getting involved in this and supporting this. It's a brand new webinar series called Salt Design Live. First of all, I hope everyone's doing well. I hope everyone's safe and healthy. It's obviously a really difficult time for a lot of us. I was going to start this webinar with a joke, but obviously you guys are all on mute and I'm being recorded right now. So decided that probably wasn't the best idea. So we'll just kick straight off and go straight into it. It's obviously called Code-centric design. And really what we're going to be discussing today is how as designers, we can improve our skill sets and improve our general ability to design through learning to code. So for those who know me already, my name's Jack. I'm a principal consultant at Sol, and I primarily do product design, UX and UI recruitment. If anyone needs support with their careers at the moment, please just give me a shout afterwards. I'm more than happy to take a call or an email at any time. We're really lucky today to be joined by Charles. He's a great guy. He's been super helpful and just has a really great background and skill set, and hopefully he'll be able to share some insight with you guys today that you didn't already know. And hey, you've got a new connection even if that's not the case. So just to go through some quick housekeeping before we kick off. So if everyone can please just make sure your mic is on mute throughout, that would be really great. We are recording the webinar and we will send this to you afterwards along with a feedback form as well. So that's super helpful for the first one. If you guys have any comments, any ideas or want to get involved, please do let us know. If you've got an issue as well, a technical issue, just raise your hand, not physically, virtually. There's a function in the chat and hopefully we'll be able to help. And also at the end of this presentation that Charles is going to give you, we do have a Q&A. So please feel free to put your questions in the chat as we go through this talk with Charles, and hopefully we'll be able to address all of those at the end. So thanks for listening, guys. I'll pass you over to Charles.
Cool. Thank you, Jack.
No worries.
Share my screen. All right. Can you all see my screen? Yeah, all good? Cool. All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Charles. I'm a designer living in London, originally from France, as you might have guessed from my accents. And today we are going to talk about coding and how I think might be important for designers to learn how to code, but not only designers. I think this is everybody who have an interest to learn new skills. So just to get started, I think for me, so I started coding when I was actually 14 years old. So at the time there was no apps or phone, the internet was just getting started. I'm not that old, but this is, I think the first piece of code I actually did was on my Texas Instruments, so like calculator, to just create a game because I was really bored in class and didn't want to listen to the teachers. So I was either coding on my calculator or just play the game I actually created. And a couple of years later, I went to art school. And ever since, I always tried to merge design and code and just play with both to put my ideas out there. I think this is great because sometimes I like to design and just spend time to design, but sometimes I actually get bored of actually designing, so I just create something in code and just like vice versa, play with it. So it's actually quite cool. I worked at Deliveroo a couple of years ago. I worked at Soho House, more recently at Facebook. Couple of like startup like Daisy, and I also had my own digital studio for 8 years in partnership with Christian Louboutin, which is this guy. If you don't know him, he created like the Red Soles. So he's a shoemaker. And yeah, and I also so today I'm actually creating a new business called Emblem, and I will talk about it later on, but it's all about gifting. And yes, so just like a quick overview of what we are going to talk today. So just like a general overview of why learning code is important. Then I do like a quick live example of what I'm actually doing today. So Emblem, and just like quick takeaways on how for you to get started, and just where what kind of resources you can do, and just so just to get started, I think I just would like to give a story around how I got to work with Christian Louboutin and how it actually helped me to know both design and code. So I had my digital studio La Moulade, and we were very small, like just the three of us. And I had the chance to meet somebody at Christian Louboutin, and so far so forth. I met the CEO, and he said that there's like a real disconnection between the creative direction that was managed at the time by the actual Princess of Greece, she's like a very good friend of Christian himself, and the IT team who was in charge of the web. So they didn't have a real interest in design. So you can imagine that the two were really clashing. So the creative direction wanted to push ideas, but was like too crazy to be coded. So my goal when I arrived was to actually talk with the creative direction, try to bring the idea into something that is visible. So creating like small prototypes and back and forth with her. So I was actually just coding and just improving the design kind of things, and then move the code, something that could be integrated into the actual platform. That was Magento, and we did a couple of projects like this, and the result was like Christian Louboutin invested in my company, and we grew the team to 10, 12 people, and that was like very great. And we became the digital creative studio for Christian Louboutin. So that was great part of my life, and I think a huge part of this was like I knew how to code and I knew how to design, so like really bring the two together. So the key problems I can see, and the first one is related to the story, is like designers and engineers don't always speak the same language. So I don't know if you saw if you're watching The Last Dance on Netflix, and this is Dennis Rodman like describing his ideas. I think designers describing their prototype could be, messy and incomplete, or you should do this or that, it should animate like this, and it's not always. So if you know how to code, it's much easier to express your idea and just, talk to the engineers and say, the animation should be, like an ease of like 300 milliseconds like this, and the engineer can actually see your design. Second point is like you don't always have an engineer who fully understands your design. So there's a couple of friends of mine I see online, like great designers or great front-end engineers that actually beautifully work together. So the designer don't code, but you know how to work with an engineer who know how to like interpret the design and just push it to the next level. So just like an example of a friend of mine who is like working with a designer on this idea. Like we will create like a scrolling glitch effect, that is kind of things. And this idea just came live by just like the designer and the engineer working together and just playing around in code directly. But it's actually quite rare to find this great match. And for all the designers out there and all the engineers, in big company like Facebook or whatever, the match is not always there. So, being able to code as a designer will help to bridge the gap with engineers. And the third point, and I think this is the most important one, at least for me, is like by not coding yourself, you might miss some ideas that might have been generated from code. So, there's I really see coding as just like the half part of the design. So for everything I do, so there's ideas like generative design. This is an example from some of my friends who are in London. Sorry, I'm pointing there, but they are like in London Fields. I used to share an office with them, and they are like pure genius, and they do digital arts. And this example here is a cover that that has been generated from code. Is there something else I can help? And so there is like 10,000 different covers. So they don't create the final outputs. They will create the rule for the output to be generated itself. So if they wanted to actually create 10,000 different covers manually, it would be insane. So by doing by code, they did it like, more easily. And there's two persons. So just in interest of time, there's lots of people actually talking about this, like, merging code or just like pushing designers to code. But it's there's two persons I would like to share today. The first one is called John Maeda. It's this guy. So I think he was professor at the MIT Media Lab for around 12 years. And he's, I think for me, the best person to talk about design and just present, what's going on, the trends on design and everything. It's just like you need to actually watch his videos, and I can send some links after if you want. But every year he sends a report on what are the actual trends in design and what's the status, and last year he just released this report saying that there is actually there's three different kind of design. There is the classical design, mostly print. There's the design thinking, and a new thing called computational designers. And his definition is around, the mastery of knowing how to mix software, hardware, and network all together. And this is, I think, what we are much in need today, to have designers who know how to mix, code, engineering, just play around fully with their ideas. He created this book, The Laws of Simplicity. I mean, if you haven't read it, it's just like a very simple book, but I highly recommend it. Second one is somebody I actually follow on Instagram called Zach Lieberman. I think he lives in New York, but I'm not sure. He became very famous. I mean, if you follow his Instagram, he always share like work in progress in code and what he builds with code and design. So he's been very famous for creating Instagram filters. They're all absolutely crazy. You have an example here where you can mix your face and kind of things, but he's like a pure genius and a beautiful inspiration. But everything he do is made in code. So this is an example of like a print he did. Like this is only made in code, and you can check on his Instagram like how all the different versions he came to actually arrive to this. So the point I would like to make here is like it can be any kind of code. So personally, I really like to, so I learn, React and all the language of the web to actually express what I want to express, which was like potentially creating a business or an app that people can use, or all these kind of things, and just pushing the design to just make beautiful interactions. But it can be digital art, it could be light installations, physical objects. And a great example is like, so this guy, Zach Lieberman, created a school called School for Poetic Computation, and which I think it's absolutely brilliant. It's just how to use code, hardware, and design to create poetry. And this is all they do. They just use whatever thing, just a terminal, just, creating something, physical objects, pure code to create poetry. I think it's just beautiful. And you can follow them on Instagram, and they are great. Before I go to this, another example of a friend of mine called Raf was one manager at Deliveroo. So he was a design manager at Deliveroo. And he actually worked also at Facebook, creating the events part of Facebook. And he was quite fed up about the actual design, like all the design he did and everything. And he more like, I think in December, or maybe early before that, he just wanted to learn new things. So he stopped everything. He went back to school to learn mechanics and light engineering and coding for physical objects. And I think he did like light installation on a bus for Burning Man. But it's just like, there's no like age restriction. I think you can always, take time to learn at any age, any step of your life to learn how to code and any kind of code. One last example I would like to share here is made on a tool I really love called Figma. So I've been part of the team who are, this was done when I was there, when we transitioned from Sketch to Figma at Deliveroo, but also at Facebook. So Facebook recently like starting to introduce Figma, and like designers were able to do it. And it has been like a massive success to actually see content strategists, PM, lots of different people being live on the same platform, and absolutely great. But yeah, as you can tell, I love Figma. So last example is from, I think he's a designer, but he knows how to design and code. He works at Stripe, the payment gateway. And he wanted to try, and he created a Figma plugin just to actually auto-generate patterns like this. So it's absolutely useless, but it's just beautiful in itself, just like playing around and yeah. So that was like general intro. I think what would be great now is just to talk about like a live example of what I'm doing today, and talk a bit about entrepreneurship. So I think, for me, really being in a position where I can design, code, and use that to build a company, it's absolutely great. So I met in February my business partner, Lindsay, and she had the exact same idea as me around gifting, but with a total different approach. And we met through friends, and yeah, we just share the idea, and we started a new business based on that. And this was in February, so we are like two or 3 months after that, and we are almost ready to have a first prototype. So I'll be able to share something perhaps in June. So Emblem is a gift concierge. So if you have, let me actually send you to the homepage, because this is what we will talk about. I don't know if I can hide this. Right. So basically, the concept is very simple. If you don't have an idea for a gift, we will help you find this idea. We will then buy the gift, wrap it, and send it back to you on time. Very simple. And like a couple of like a month ago, we decided to that we wanted first to share this idea and see the response a bit. So we wanted a landing page, and this is how it started. So this is the actual landing page. This is like heavily inspired from the world of Wes Anderson. If you saw the film The Grand Budapest Hotel. But the idea we wanted to do was to create this house absolutely fully coded. So this house is entirely made out of code. So if you actually resize the house, it moves and just change. It's always like great. So even in mobile, it's just like a responsive house. And to give you an idea, I designed and coded this page in like a week and a half or maybe 2 weeks. And the reason why it was that quick was like I actually designed very quickly. So did like perhaps like not polish everything, but just half of the design, and finished the design as I was coded, creating like live prototyping and just like reducing the amounts like very, very heavily. So yeah, just one point I would like to mention around entrepreneurship. I think the reason why we're here today with Lindsay and just building this business is because I was actually okay to share the ideas that I have. So I have this like notion. Maybe I can show you a template one day. Maybe not all my ideas, but this is like a page template where it's like all the different ideas. And every time I have an idea, I just put it there. And I have lots of columns to say, okay, this idea might go to this industry, and this idea might be related to a skill I have, to a particular interest I have, and just like narrowing down very mathematically all the ideas, and just be ready to share to anybody, just to say, what do you think? And I got the chance to talk to a guy called Dan, just to talk about his experience and get a bit of insights from him. And I shared this like 3 ideas to him, and one of them was the gift thing, and say, oh my God, you absolutely need to meet this person, Lindsay. She has the same idea as you, and you should meet and perhaps do something. So a week after that, we did, and we're here. We have a new business together. So I think the key takeaway here is don't be afraid to share ideas you have, or just ask questions, or just there's never nobody will actually steal. I don't really believe in that. So so perhaps let's talk about, I think what I wanted to do is just show you how this house has been coded, and show you like a live example. So the inspiration came, as I said, from Wes Anderson. So we found this Instagram account called Accidentally Wes Anderson, which is brilliant. It's like places from the real world that could have been from a Wes Anderson movie. And as you can see, there's lots of front house like this one or this one. So coming back to Figma, this was like the beginning. So I just took like a lot of the different houses that I found interesting and say, oh yeah, this window has a great top. You can see I'm actually drawing on top of the window. This roof, the tails, the tiles, these things, the doors here, and just like take pieces to just build my house. So yeah, that was like a first example, not a really good one, but yeah, and we ended up doing this house. So it took many small iterations, but yeah, it's there. Perhaps something as well I can hear many times, even at Facebook from managers, this idea of mobile first. I think in design, I always find easier, and this is maybe just me, but I would be curious to learn from you guys, but how you do it. It's I always prefer to design on desktop first and then shrink everything, reduce everything to mobile, where you encode for performance, you want to design to code in mobile first, and then add the pieces of code for desktop, just not to make the loading time easy on mobile. But design-wise, there's no mobile first. I mean, at least for me. So let's just try to give a bit of an example. So I think I found on the web like a hot air balloon. So what I did is just like put the image, try to draw on top of it, improve it the way I wanted, bring the colors, and just, everything is done on Figma. I think if you want to get started, Figma is the right tool. So for all the designers out there, it might be like, I'm pretty sure you know this, but when it's actually a vector element, you can export it in an SVG. And SVG will be like everything is coded. So just to show you how it is. So this is actually the hot air balloon in code. So you can see like, every path is just like coordinates, and you can see the strokes color, the stroke width, the width and height. And because it's in code, you can actually now play with it and just change colors, change structure, animate, and kind of. So for these particular things, and to create the house, I just exported every pieces in SVG and just play with CSS to just hide and reshape different things. So, this is just like an example of importing the hot air balloon, putting in my components, and then create the animation. So I'm coding the animation. It's a loop that for 20 seconds, and it will go from the top 200 to top 10 pixels and 200 again, and infinitely. So the result is just something very easy where you have the balloon going up and down like this. I did the same for the clouds, the same for the clock, and yeah, I wanted to animate the palm trees and kind of things, but you have to stop at some point. Yeah, this is very simple. So if you have any coding questions, or just like to see the entire code and how this page is done, just ask me and I'll be very happy to share. So yeah, back to the presentation. Sorry, I'm lost. All right, so that was the example. So how to get started? I think this is there's many things. So if you're a designer and you never coded, there's lots of tools online to do this. The one I actually used was Treehouse. Like back in the days, just like a couple of years ago, there was I was not really good at JavaScript. So the good things about Treehouse is like on your website, you can actually, they have this editor, so you code and they tell you exactly where you miss and everything. So you just on the website and just learn as you do. So you actually code yourself. And my God, I mean, the reward is so immediate that it's just so great to just, you can learn how to code in a day or two to just like do like very, very simple things, but it's really rewarding. And then you go to the next level. So if you know a bit more, and if you even code a bit, there's this thing called Design Code, where it's made for designers to learn how to code in React, in Vue, and it's really made on a perspective from a designer. And I think it's actually really great. I think a little bit more advanced, maybe for the ones who actually do code. So, as an entrepreneur, you need to be really careful on the time and the money you invest in business. So it's for Emblem, we don't have the luxury to hire backend engineer, and I actually have to design and code pretty much every part of the app. So I'm actually using React, which is very, very fast, and something from Google called Firebase. And what Firebase gives you is basically the tool, like a database, and all the endpoints and tools to actually connect very easily with your app. So in just like literally like a couple of lines of code, I can create a live chat. So it's kind of using WebSockets and all this stuff. So we decided to use this. We will pay for it, and it might become a bit expensive later on, but it helped us to get started. So there's lots of tools to get started. Another one I really like called Prismic is headless. We call it like headless CMS, and yeah, it's basically it's kind of new way to think about CMS outside of WordPress or Drupal or all these kind of things. And last thing on the tools I use, I think this is if you never coded, I think this is, you don't need like a lot of tools. This is pretty much all the tools I use. Figma, VS Code to code, GitHub to put my code, like versionings and everything. Notion and Chrome, and that's pretty much only the tools I use. So it's quite an easy start from this. So yes, I think this is a very condensed talk around design and coding, but I have many more stories. And if you afterward, if you want to, talk about, different experiences at Deliveroo or Facebook and how I did in the past, or how even to get started, just feel free to ask, and I'll be happy to talk about it. So yeah, that's it. Thank you very much.
So thank you very much, Charles. That was brilliant, really, really insightful. But I'm sure there's probably some more questions that people have. So to make this a little bit more interactive, as we've still got plenty of time, has anyone got any questions, and would they like to potentially unmute themselves at the moment and maybe dive in?
Or you can still see.
Has anyone got any questions that they'd like to ask, potentially about Charles's background, coding and design, maybe working at Facebook? Anyone at all?
Yes, I have a question. Hi.
Hi, Margot.
Okay, should I write it down, or I didn't know if I could speak?
Who have we got?
You can speak.
This is Valeria. Hi.
Valeria, hi, how are you?
Good.
I thought it was you.
Yeah. So, thank you very much, Charles. It was super interesting.
Thank you.
I think I have one question, and it's more of a personal thing I'm doing right now. I'm very much into transitioning to Figma. So I wanted to have your opinion on this and also on the workflow and how it works as well for development. I mean, I saw that this is your tool of choice.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you could tell me a bit about it, please.
Yeah, sure. I mean, this is great. I mean, there's so many big companies that actually take Figma. So Uber, Dropbox, Facebook, Deliveroo, they're all like, getting Figma. So it's a bit sad for Sketch, but I think the main advantage is like everybody can be on the same platform. It's live, it's on the web, on your phone, or things. So the good thing is like, so let me tell you. So at Facebook, so I was working for a project called Workplace, and everybody was working on Sketch, and I was the only one working on Figma and trying to push it. And in every meeting, I was talking about Figma. Guys, please try it and everything. Just was doing courses and yeah, and slowly it got adapted and we got to a point like globally at Facebook there was like, I don't know, when I left there was like maybe 3,000 people on Figma and see all the different interactions. It was great. The good thing is like the way they build Figma is very close to Sketch. They made it intentional. So there is even lots of shortcuts on Sketch, on Figma that are made specifically from Sketch. So, something like on Sketch you have an artboard, but on Figma it's called a frame. On Sketch, if you press A, it creates an artboard, but so on Figma, if you press A, it will actually create a frame. So they keep the same thing. So yeah, I will definitely encourage to play around with it. There is lots of shortcuts. They have a tool. You should open it to learn about all the different shortcuts. So yes. Does it answer your question?
Yes, thank you. I'm also pushing Figma a bit, but then I'm like, is this right or not?
Cool. I think you should. There's so many examples of great stories in different companies where content strategists, PM, designers all work together. I even so like, there's something we call critique, where designers actually share the design and people, all the designers can do like positive critiques and just help. And I saw like like funny thing where they do like silent critiques only on Figma. So they open a project and everybody puts their projects, and all the designers can comment directly live on the project. So it's pretty fun.
Thank you. Yeah, sounds cool. Thank
Good
you.
question, Val. Does anyone else have a question?
Yeah. How do you, like, when you're talking about code and sort of, coming up with your own ideas and things, how do you go about like addressing the challenges of more of like the back end things that is, typically out of a designer's depth kind of thing?
Yeah, no, it's a great question, Mike. I think this is I'm not a backend engineer at all, and this is really hard. So the solution I did, and I highly recommend it, is to try Firebase. The way to do it is just creating this this like backend service where it's made for front-end engineers. So I don't touch the server, I don't touch the endpoints, the APIs, or anything. I just use Firebase in my front-end app. I code in front-end in JavaScript, in React, and that's it. And it's just pure magic. I mean, yeah, I learned it in like a week or two, and I'm so amazed by it. So yeah,
yeah. Cheers for that.
no, it's cool.
Has anyone else got a question that they'd like to ask?
Yeah, I think I've got a question.
Hi, Dimitri.
Hey, so I guess a question I have for you. So so the point of this talk is kind of about coding and learning to code and stuff like that, so you can, make some, more responsive things, or just understanding the art of code. But I'm quite interested. So one of the things I'm learning at the moment is Webflow, because I've been using kind of like template websites, and I'm sick of them, and I want to create something more custom. But personally, I find it hard. Like, I found it hard in the past to make the time to learn to write, how to write code and the structure behind it, and writing lots of lines. And I think Webflow is a great thing where you're using some of those fundamentals, but not necessarily like the true fundamentals of coding. I'm just interested to kind of get your insight on that specific tool, or those sorts of tools.
Yeah.
What value you see in them.
Yeah, I know for sure. I think this is that's a great question. So you're totally right. I can see a lot of designers trying Webflow and trying to, they don't have an engineer, but they want a website, so they want to do this. I think my point is coding is not only, landing pages on the web. It can be anything. So, something I really want to actually improve in coding is to learn like WebGL or processing, all these kind of languages to express like visual ideas I have. So I understand that there's a big trend on trying to code for the web, for a product or a company that you have, but there's many ways you can code, and just the basic principle of coding applies to any different languages. So if you learn how to code in processing, for example, you will learn, functions, values, loops, and all of this. And this could be applied after that when you learn the web. But I totally get you. I mean, Webflow is actually quite amazing. You can do a lot with it. But then, I mean, if you want to do this, or if you want to do this kind of things, maybe, you will get frustrated by Webflow because, Webflow perhaps can't do anything. So, yeah.
Cool. Thank you very much. Cheers.
No, cool.
Thanks, Dimitri. Has anyone else got some questions they'd like to ask? If not,
I have one question.
Hi,
all right. Hi. So great presentation. Really interesting stuff. Specifically, the inspirations that you showed at the beginning with from Zach Lieberman, I think. I wanted to know first if you have any experience in this sort of creative coding. And because myself, I have some experience in React, but I'm really trying to sort of shift a bit into more sort of artistic direction in learning V5 and so on. Do you have any sort of advice to do this transition? Because I've understood that your experience with coding is mostly for the web, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So this is yeah. So I think I tried many things. When I was young, I was doing doing some video coding stuff, just for a pure playground. But yeah, today it's like the code I learn is mostly React, and just learn because I have a need for my business. But there's always something in the back of my mind. It's like, I want to do something cool, something that moves and interacts. I mean, I can show you like some of the projects that so my friend at Field, they do. they create screens like this, entirely, animated things that, about it. So this is just beautiful, all these kind of things. How to get there? I think there's a lot of people who are specialized in these kind of things. The way I did in the beginning was like, I really want to learn this. So I saw a post online saying, this actually studio. So it's managed by Marcus and Vera, and they had like a free desk on, in their office, and you say, no, yeah, this is so cool. Even if I was paying a desk, I just want to be surrounded with these guys and be with them and just learn from them. So I was paying 2 desks, 2 offices, 1 empty, and just be with them. And we became very good friends, and I learned a lot from what they did and how they do it, the processes. So I guess there's so much you can learn online, but at some point could be great. You just go and meet these guys and just talk. This is a very small community, so if you want to learn about it, I can definitely give you like a few names for you to contact them. And
yeah, absolutely. That would be lovely, actually.
Yeah, cool.
Thanks, guys. Was there any other questions that came to mind?
I've got one.
Hi, Sophia.
Hey. So I was wondering about like when you're talking about entrepreneurship and like starting new projects. I know that it can be like tricky sometimes because we can get caught up in design. And what I really liked was the concept of how quickly you got yours to ship. Like you said, in a week and a half. So how did you find the process of like going from design to then putting it into production and then like iterating? You said you were prototyping through Code, right? It would be really cool to know if you found any blockers or found yourself like getting stuck in the design cycle and like afraid to get into the code, and how that was for you.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I think this is so let me show you. I hope my business partner will not get too mad if I show something quite live, but we are designing kind of a questionnaire for us to learn about you and your friends, and something quite live on this. So it's all on Figma. Everything is live. So what we do is like, this is Lindsay, my business partner, try to put her idea on Figma, and I take it and actually design here. What I actually do is try to not go too much in detail. There's no design system in place. There's nothing. I just try to go straight to code, the sooner as possible, and just play with it, with all of this. This is, I think it worked for me because I learned how to code from, quite some time. So, I'm always learning, but, I play around on this. I have also a couple of friends, which I'm always like pinging when they have I don't know how to do something. So we just like, play with each other. So, again, see if you have problem with code or you just like frustrated because you don't know how to do this. I'm always here, so send me a message and I'll be happy to give you things, help on this. But,
thank you, that's great.
But yeah, just don't be afraid to, I think the sooner you code, the better, and you will learn how you do. There's no trick. There's like, the more you code, the better you will be. So.
Perfect, thank you.
Great question. Any others out there? Anyone else curious about anything? Now's a great opportunity to ask.
Hey Charles, how's it going, man?
Hi, it's.
Thanks for a great speech. It's quite impressive what you're doing, and it sort of almost seems overwhelming, kind of like not really coming from a coding background. I guess I'm curious about what kind of tools would you recommend for noobs? I mean, I've been like dabbling with Webflow and the like, and that's really helping me sort of appreciate some of that structure, that design needs to bring to align with the code world. But one of the challenges I sometimes have is it's like, oh, if only I had some tools that would help me sort of like hack the situation, because you might gain inspiration from other websites and you just want to like pull out a little bit of a snippet of code here or the CSS here, or like build things up rather than having to kind of like generate things from scratch.
Yeah,
kind of nice to be able to like borrow some greatness and then sort of like try to bring that into your site and then do discrete mods that way. And do I need to introduce like the sort of tools that you've got now, or is there sort of maybe a little Chrome add-on, or is there some in betweener like Dreamweaver?
Yeah. So this is I think there's so much like. Could you try again? Sorry, second time today.
Sorry.
Oh, come on.
Kicking off.
So there's so much content out there that people are willing to share, and things. It's just like a matter of just finding it. So it's really hard to give like a one thing, but I can show you like things. So a lot of snippets of code that I found are hosted on GitHub. So sometimes, I want to learn about I don't know, something around Next.js. So they have like something. So Next.js, for example, this is the framework I use for. It's a React framework I use for another project, and they have lots of examples somewhere. Here we are. So this is an example. They have hundreds of like pieces of code, something like with Firebase that you can test and see the code directly. This is actually, I think I learned a lot from seeing these kind of things directly on GitHub. Chrome is actually like the best friend for me. You just open the console, you're just trying to see, oh, yeah, this piece, like, how do they actually do it? I can show you an example. It's like what we did at Facebook. So we were working on a marketing website, and Apple is really, the king to create like beautiful interactive website with all this kind of tricky animations like this. And I'm not sure you can do this with Webflow, but and by just like opening this, playing around and just checking the code, and you get an idea of how you can do it. And then you just go. Sometimes I use CodePen. So I just either create my own thing or just find something, it's like, let's say, button animation. And here we go. Look at this. This is like beautiful animated buttons. And you have all the codes ready here in HTML, CSS, JavaScript. So CodePen is a big resources. So please use it. They have this couple of competitor to CodePen. I usually mostly use CodePen. Yeah. So
thanks, Elliot. Thanks, Charles. Anyone else out there that fancies asking a question? Oh, hi, Misha. How are you? Oh, there's a bit of a sound issue going on. Misha, do you want to post your question in the chat? Can't seem to hear you. I don't know if everyone else is having that issue as well.
No, I can't hear you.
Post in the chat, please, Misha, and then Charles can answer it that way.
Okay, To what extent did learning how to code make you a better designer? Ooh, great question. Very interesting. So I will give you a story around like 2 companies I worked for. So actually, this is the same story at Deliveroo and Facebook. So because I knew how to code and design, in both company, at Deliveroo and Facebook, they actually put me in this place where there was like a gap between the brand team and product teams, where brand team doesn't know how to code and doesn't know really all the process of a product. And the product team, you know, are not really, they are like a lot UX designers, not so much visual designers, and perhaps they don't really know how to code, but there is this gap in the middle, mostly for marketing products. So if you create like a landing page or to promote your product, where it uses quite a full spectrum, where it's product design, marketing design, visual design, animation, and code all together, kind of things. And because I knew how to do design and codes, I was always put in this position to solve marketing products at Deliveroo and Facebook. So I think it's because it's quite not rare. I mean, I really want more designers to code, but you know, this is that was actually quite easy for me to find jobs and great position on this. But how it made me a better designer? It's I think this is related to the last point that I was making here. It's like there's things I could see animated that I couldn't before. So because I know how to code it, I know how to push the idea because I know how it is coded. So I can also know the limitation. So, you know, I will not do something where you animate 20 videos on the web because it's silly and it's very load, you know, how to load. It could be a great visual thing. And, you know, because I know the limitation, I know how to constrain my design. So yeah, I think that's it.
Good question. Thank you, Misha. And I think on that point, actually, for anyone who's read Range by David Epstein, it's a great book. And really, it's just discussing how having a sort of multidiscipline skill set or learning things in other areas actually makes us better in the area that we're in. And I think that's a massive point that runs through the theme of this whole talk. You know, getting out there and learning topics in different areas will really help you in the area that you're working in.
Yeah.
So, Charles, I don't know if you have any final thoughts. You want to wrap things up? Anything you want to leave people with?
I think there's the last question about what are your thoughts on Adobe XD?
Oh, there's another question. Okay, brilliant.
But just one. Oh, and Jack, somebody asked you for the name of the book.
I'll just pop that in the chat now.
Yeah. Adobe XD. I think this. I mean, I'm pretty against nowadays everything related to Adobe. I think they are like this super gigantic machine that doesn't know how to create great products. It's just too big. Every time I interacted with them for different projects, you know, even the team, it's always very complex. So now, you know, I don't use Photoshop, I don't use Illustrator. I just use like smaller tools that do a better job than these big machines. And I feel like Adobe XD is the same thing. It's great, but it will never be at the level of Figma. Oh yeah, so yeah.
Excellent. So guys, I think that's it for now. We've gone the full hour. Just wanted to say a kind of massive thanks to everyone for joining us today. This is the first one that we've done, so it's a learning curve for all of us. We really want to continue doing these and making them better and sharing knowledge. If anyone's got any input that they'd like to have going forward, and any feedback would be massively appreciated. We'll send around the recording after this session, as well as a feedback form. So I just wanted to say huge thanks to Charles for speaking and sharing his knowledge, and to all of you guys for joining. Stay safe, stay healthy, and feel free to reach out to me if you need support with anything design career related.
Great. Thank you everyone for being there and sharing your questions.